And good evening. Welcome to the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. I'm Chad Holmes, joined once again by former Newman Catholic High School boys basketball coach Jeff Gress. Coming up in the next 2 hours, we'll be talking about what's been going on in high school basketball and hockey, plus special guests. Coming up at 6:20, it will be our coach guest for this week from Auburndale High School. Off to a very good start this season on the boys' side. We'll be talking to Chad Weinfurter. And then at 7 o'clock, it's our student-athlete guest from DC Everest, Cohen Preby. So a couple of great guests coming up. Not as many games to talk about because Friday night, obviously, everything pretty much was postponed, but still a lot of good stuff to talk about.
Yeah, well, and luckily there's some games Monday, some games last night, but yeah, that was the biggest deficiency I saw in looking for games is they haven't quite been made up yet, but we'll get our fill. It's coming up.
Exactly right. So let's start with boys high school basketball. Wisconsin Valley Conference. You got Stevens Point, still undefeated, 3-0 and 13-0 overall after a nice win last night at Appleton East. You got Marshfield. They haven't played in the last week. They're 3-0 in the conference, 11-1 overall. Then still Wausau East and Wausau West, 3-2 in the conference. Lumberjacks 11-2 overall. Warriors are 10-4. DC Everest 1-3 in the conference, 5-9 overall. Merrill and Wisconsin Rapids 0-3 in the conference. Merrill 4-7 overall, and Wisconsin Rapids 3-9. And limited amount of action in the past week. Just briefly before I let Jeff kind of give his thoughts on some of the action and some of the teams. I was in Chippewa Falls Monday night and saw the Wausau West Warriors rally past Chi High 57-54 in overtime. Bennett Matson, 21 points. Brett Butala, 14 for the Warriors. It was a game where the Warriors won on the backs of their defense. And then last night there was some action, non-conference action for the Wisconsin Valley Conference teams. Hortonville beat DC Everest 88-53. Our guest, Cohen Preby, had 22 points. Casey Studeman, 9 for Everest. Stevens Point beat Appleton East 72-66. Grant Chaudenat, 27. Baraka McAleen had 14. Merrill fell to Medford 62-51. Charlie Garrell, 21. Tanner Robbie, 18 for Medford. And Wisconsin Rapids beat Antigo 72-44. So, Jeff, the lay of the land for the Wisconsin Valley Conference and boys hoops, kind of the same because we haven't had any change in the conference standings. But again, you look at the overall records for the top four teams, it's something that's been very impressive. We touched on it last week, but it still continues to be very impressive and gives hope that the Valley can make some noise as we continue.
Yeah, I think just judging it by the numbers of what you see on paper right away, Marshfield with 11, Spash with 13, East with 11, West with 10. Those are solid win marks and something you hope to ride on as you get into your more of a bulk of the second time around in the conference here, as well as a couple non-conference games that they have lingering, but just looking sort of to continue to build those resumes. Again, you're waiting for that Spash Marshfield game to come down. You want to start seeing some separation and somebody give somebody a loss, so you can start seeing other teams try to catch and chase, and the one team that stands at the top kind of own their spot. I think for West, with the non-conference action against Chippewa Falls, they struggled with East. They have Lang is out and he's hurt, so they're kind of trying to get some movement with the players, put it back together in a little bit different way with different guys having different roles a little bit whenever you got somebody injured. So I think for them, even though it might not have been pretty, and I think they played from behind most of the game when I was listening, I think anytime you can show some stamina, show some toughness, overcome some obstacles, especially after the game before you're out to prove something from that game yet as a squad, I think it's a win, and it's something you can build off of. And they came back and showed some resiliency. For Spash got the non-conference win against Appleton East. I think they got a good showdown with East coming up, where they, East can look to take one there from Spash. So I think it's a good game, and they got it on their home court. I think for there's a definite kind of cutoff in the conference right now where teams stand with the top four teams, well into their double-digit wins and holding marks well above the 500 mark with places to be jockeying, and I think it's going to be a little tougher for DC Everest Merrill Rapids to jockey for that position. And I look at it at this point in the season where you're kind of trying to decide as a team, what do we want to get out of it? Where do we want to end up? Where can we? What's a good building stone to just get to third place, or because sometimes you're going to put around here in your schedule, you're going to put yourself out of reach on a couple of those spots to finish at the top place. So, I get a little nervous when I see Hortonville take one to Everest again. I think those are always tough ones to lose because I want to see the Valley and our area teams go hold their own. I think for the top teams, though, they're really substantiating themselves in terms of the wins to build for that playoff resume.
But you see these teams with only 3 conference games at this point. I mean, there's so much conference activity still to come. And when you look at Everest, their losses have come to Stevens Point, Marshfield, and Wausau West, all near the top of the conference. So they still have an opportunity. They still have Merrill twice, Wisconsin Rapids twice. There's, I think, the potential for a team like Everest to make a move. And there's so much unknown yet. I mean, it's really odd because in the old days, it just felt like there was so much more conference activity. Now it just feels like there's so much outside of the Merrillwood non-conference activity. Most of these teams play many more games out of conference than they do in conference.
Well, and you wouldn't think, by having most of the teams dormant on Friday because of the weather, that it would, if we had a couple of those games from Friday, you could still kind of see how things play out. I mean, right now with what we see on paper, it looks like there's some cutoff. I agree with you on Everest. Their 3 losses are some of the heavy hitters. And I think,
even though they're non-conference, they played a lot of good
they play some tough games. So in their defense, they're rallying.
I guess that's the point I was making, that of the teams there, the one that could possibly make that move would be DCE.
Right. I think they have you got teams the second time around, and you always have some definitely stuff to build on, and we'll get a better insight from on Preeb tonight make sure I say it right. What is it? Preeby when he comes in to kind of share his insights a little bit. But I think they have a jump that they can definitely make within that conference based on the play we've seen a couple times out of them early on.
Great Northern Conference. You got Mosinee 5-0, 12-1 overall. Rhinelander and Lakeland are 4-1 in the conference, and they're both 7-5 overall. Medford 3-2 in the conference, 5-7 overall. Northern Pines 2-5 in the league, 5-10. Antigo 1-4, 4-10, and Tomahawk 0-6, 1-12. And the game of the week would have to be Mosinee Handy Marathon, their first loss, 61-58. Marathon led by 6 at halftime, but Mosinee came back to get the win. Keegan Jershely, who was a guest of ours a couple of weeks back, big night, 26 points, 8 assists. Landon Tomer, 10 points, 9 rebounds. Grant Warren, 18 points, 12 boards for Marathon. Cooper Huxama, 18 points, 7 rebounds. But that's a statement win for Mosinee, isn't it? Yeah,
well, as I had the game on West on the radio, I had Mosinee and Marathon up on the screen, and it was a heavyweight bout. Guys were throwing it back and forth for a while. Then Marathon would establish themselves. They were up 6, and they were up 9, and I think 9 was the highest that I remember getting to. But it came down to making some plays down the stretch. Mosinee crept back in. They hit some shots from the free throw line. They had some key steals. Marathon on their side, had some bad turnovers. And even for a couple of players. I watched a couple of players in that game miss some crucial free throws, but then at the end they made up for, came back with a crucial steal and went to the basket, finished on some tough layups. So, Marathon's played well, but couple key mistakes here let Mosinee sneak in and take one away. And for Mosinee, there was resiliency there out of their players, and they even had a couple of their key stat guys. Tomer didn't have a great night from the field, but he made a big bucket at the end on one of the shots he hits. And I thought just for Mosinee, they're establishing themselves as top team in that conference, as well as when they cross over and they play a great team like they do in Marathon, that they're going to come out and give them a war. And that was a hard-fought victory to get those 61 points and make a couple key stops at the end that were a big deal. It just shows you, knock down your free throws and don't turn the ball over. It can be good things at the end of a game.
Merriwood South, Marathon still on top, 7-0, 12-1 overall now. Auburndale, we'll hear plenty about the Eagles from Coach Weinfurter, and they're off to a great start. 7-1 in the conference, 11-2 overall. Stratford right there is a 10 to always be, 5-2 in the conference, 10-3 overall. Then you got Edgar, who's off to a really good start. They're 5-2 in the conference, 10-2 overall. Assumption 3-4 in the conference, 5-7 overall. And Newman 0-8 in the conference, 1-11 overall. And you look at again, limited amount of action. Stratford, a couple of wins. They beat Black River Falls 58-38. Henry Zaleski 13. Caden Foster 11 on Saturday. Then Stratford on Monday beat Stanley Boyd 72-46. Brady Schmidt 18 points. Edgar beat the Northeast Wisconsin Christian Homeschool. Don't know what their nickname is.
We got to find that out.
I know, we do. 71-54. Tegan Strite 23. Carter Butt 14. And last night, Assumption climbs closer to 500. They beat Newman 52-35. Chase Lieberg and Logan Nystrom 14 points each for Assumption. And again, a lot of good teams in that Merowith South.
Yeah, and for Marathon, you give them credit. They went out and challenged themselves against a very good top team in the Great Northern and didn't come up with a win, but you gain a lot out of playing those games. You really do. It helps make you stronger. And, we've talked about that before on the show. Sometimes, to go to perfection is really difficult. And sometimes you don't want to see it happen to your team, but sometimes they didn't, stubbing the toe is the wrong phrase, but to get hung up a little bit on a loss, it's nice to learn from that a little bit. It makes you kind of refocus, get back. Not that they weren't, but I think deep down it builds that psyche that we didn't quite get what we want yet, so we're going to stay hungry for it. For Stratford, I think, or all these, let's just go Marathon, Auburndale, Stratford, Edgar again. A lot of 12, 11, 10, you read it off, those wins. It mimics the top of the valley.
And the losses are just as impressive.
Yeah.
One or two or three.
Yeah, and some of them have come from each other in the losses that they have there. So, even they look at Stratford and Edgar, a couple of those losses are within their conference to some of the teams that are out above. So I think just solid record, solid play, showing that it's just a great conference to play in. It's very competitive. And, I think Stratford and Edgar, those are the two teams that you got to watch for. They can creep up on you. They're solid, maybe not on paper looking as talented pound for pound, but those kids are going to come out and give it a great day's work whenever they have to play anybody, and they're always up for challenges. So I think, getting in these crossover games, you're going to see a couple of, everybody's talking about Rib Lake, Athens a little bit. And Athens actually hasn't knocked up the win total like we thought, but Rib Lake there and Auburndale's got them right away. So I think these teams starting to establish themselves. The big deal is, again, when we roll around playoff time, they get to take some punches at each other within the brackets they're in. So it'll be interesting to see how the top of that conference plays out. And I watched Assumption.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what you think?
Yeah, last night, they did some very good things, I thought, defensively on some of Newman's top scorers. And the funny thing is, the starting lineup is a senior and 4 sophomores. And those kids play hard. They're aggressive. The way they're built in terms of they've obviously hit the weight room, they don't look like sophomores. So they really play physical, and I think that's a team as sophomores you get that. They play pretty loose. They're going to make some mistakes, but I think the growth that they can have, especially if they're willing to put the time, is tremendously. That said, for Newman too, they just got a lot of young players on those two teams. So this is a year of those for Assumption Newman, just to continue to build the foundation with what they want to stand on for the following season, as well as steal a couple they should.
Merowith North, Rib Lake, really good season, 5-2, 10-2 overall. Prentice 4-4 in the conference, 8-5 overall. Phillips 4-4, 7-5. Abbotsford and Athens are 2-5 in the conference. Abbey 3-11. Athens 5-7. Shawamigan 0-7 and 2-10. You look at it, Rib Lake, they stepped out of conference and beat Colby. That's a nice win for Rib Lake, 55-50 on Monday. Athens had a 66-50 win over Nakusa on Monday as well. And I guess generally they're always the little brother to the south.
Yeah.
But Rib Lake, that 10-2 mark, I said, one of the losses was a competitive game against Marathon.
Right, and I think, I again, not knowing the personnel, I've looked at their stats a little bit and some of their makeup, but it's hard to see when they don't play and you don't hear familiarities on them. But just in talking to some of the coaches we've talked to from the Merowith South, that's a team they don't take lightly in that, especially if you got to play there. If you have to go on the road and play in their their court. That's a big difference than when they come into your gym. So, for them, I think building something, being a team that's predicted to win that conference, but also I think somebody that can generally challenge those teams in the Marywood South. I think it was nice road win to go on after the snow day and who knows which schools had school on Monday, and to go get that win against Colby, I think is a nice deal.
CWC East, Bondwell 7-0, 12-1. Then you have Shiocton and Wyowega Fremont, both 5-2 in the conference, both 7-6 overall. Wittenberg-Burnawood now 4-3, fourth place at 6-6 overall. Manawa 3-4 in the conference, 9-6 overall. Iola Scandinavia 2-5, 3-8. Menominee Indian 1-6, Amherst 1-6. And a kind of a tough week for Whitburn. Last Thursday, they lost to Wyowega 67-41. Jet Rogowski and Hayden Miller, 13 points each. And then last night, overtime, they lost to Shiocton, 51-49, Rogowski 15. So they went from 4-1 in the conference to 4-3 in the conference, probably wishing they had a game Friday.
Right. Well, it'd be nice to get one of those games in there too, where you don't drop two conference games in a row. And actually, I was hoping with us, I was hoping for the seventh grade boys team I coached that we would have had a tour because we played in Wittenberg and Coach Rognowski was running the tournament, and I was hoping to just get to talk some basketball.
And one other game that kind of jumped out, Bondwell's 12-1, 7-0. They played Iola, who's 3-8, 2-5, and it was 50-49. Again, it shows that. You look at that, we're doing great. We're going to go in there and roll. You got to show up every night, and they just barely able to sneak away with a W.
Well, and I think one of the resounding themes whenever we talk to coaches and players within your conference, there's not nights off. Teams just get to know each other well. These kids battle in middle school, and the coaches get they put their time in. So I think it becomes something you can never take lightly. If you're on the top, you got to defend those spots. If you're on the bottom, those teams are going to keep fighting for their seasons to be worthwhile on what they want to be. But for Wittenberg, I think a team that can, they're always going to be competitive. It's a challenge to see when you're a coach. And when you look back and review the film, what are we doing in these tight ones? Why we're not pulling some out, or why are we dropping a couple in a row? And is it pound for pound, talent wise, is it abilities, or is it some mistakes we're making? And they go back and analyze that. But nonetheless, too many of those in a row with those tough, close losses can weigh on you a little bit. You gotta get back to the floor and get that W in a hard fought victory.
And CWC North on the boys' side, Marion 4-1, 10-6 overall. Northern Lutheran 3-1 in the conference, 4-6 overall. White Lake 3-2, 6-6. Tigerton 3-2, 8-3. Bowler 0-3, 1-11. Gresham 0-4, 0-12. And Northland a couple of wins. They defeated White Lake 68-54, which was a significant win within the conference because White Lake 3-2, Northland now second place at 3-1, and they took care of winless Gresham last night, 58-38. Again, I'm not sure what's happening with them. I would encourage them to put in their stats just to at least give us a little something. We had one of the young men from their team on very early in our season, and the good news is for Northern, they're 3-1 in the conference. Everybody in that conference is lost, which is always interesting.
Right.
But for Northland, again, struggling in the non-conference, but doing the job so far within their league.
And I think we've talked before about that conference is just built well with the size of schools and the competitive atmosphere that they have within them. Because, a couple of them, Northern being one of them, was a team that, for so many years was in the Marywood. And there was just a difference in win-losses. And they found a good fit for their team, their program, their size of school. I think we're always impressed the numbers that they can have out when they can find the W's because they don't have a lot of kids. It doesn't give you a lot of kids to put on your team and choose from.
Right.
So I think it's always impressive. And those last two wins have put them in a good spot. And especially to stay consistent, I think it's hard because sometimes you look at their schedule online. Yeah. They take time off. They don't play over Christmas typically, and there seems to be some big breaks, and they get a lot of cancellations based on opening the school where kids are coming from. All that type of stuff plays in. So for them to sit at a 3-1 mark, and they put together, remember with Wisconsin Valley Lutheran, they absorbed those players that wanted to come over and play there. So I think to get a little consistent, it might have taken this time to get to that point where the players, even though they all get along, have truly blended on the court. So some nice pickup and wins in terms of that conference these last couple games for Northern Lutheran.
We are going to take a quick timeout and then come back and have our first guest for this evening, the head boys basketball coach at Auburndale High School, Chad Weinfurter. That's coming up next here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
What's your idea of winter fun? If it's hitting the trails after a fresh snowfall and you're thinking new snowmobile, it's time to call CCU. That's Clover Belt Credit Union, the leader in financing fun. If you're thinking new four-wheel drive vehicle to get you to the downhill slopes or the cross-country trails, it's time to call CCU. That's Clover Belt Credit Union, the leader in financing fun. Quick, easy loan applications, friendly lenders, and great rates make CCU the lending leader in financing fun. If your idea of winter fun isn't in the snow, maybe hitting the highway in a new motorhome is the way to go. Just give CCU a call. Financing for motorhomes and winter getaways. When you think fun, think Clover Belt Credit Union. What are you waiting for? Life's too short and winter's too long. Call CCU for your great rate financing. Dial 715-842-5693 or apply online or from your smartphone. That's Clover Belt Credit Union. Local lenders lending local money, keeping our community strong.
So, how are the kids?
Well, Emily made the honor roll.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah, we're really proud of her. Tyler, on the other hand, though,
What's going on?
he's been moody lately, just feeling down and not like himself.
Oh, we've been there. Nick was struggling last spring. He was so anxious and stressed.
Really? What helped?
Well, he joined the soccer team, and ever since, he's been a lot happier. He has more energy, he's less stressed, and he's definitely in a better mood at home. It's made a huge difference.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad he's getting out of the house, he's getting some exercise, and he's off his phone for once. It's been good for his mental health.
Sounds like it's been good for your mental health, too.
Participating in Wisconsin high school sports improves students' physical and mental health. Encourage your son or daughter to get involved. This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
Take your career to the next level with Graphic Packaging International. Work with a team to make Hot Pocket sleeves and the food trays you find at our local fair. Join the GPI team and experience the benefits of one of the highest paying manufacturers in the area, starting at almost $22.55 per hour. Enjoy job security, a clean facility, and an excellent benefits package, including a week of vacation after 4 months and 2 weeks after a year. Apply today at graphicpkg.com and elevate your career with Graphic Packaging.
Hungry for flavor-packed fun?
Dive into Red Robin's sizzling burgers, mouth-watering fries, and endless options.
Or maybe you're craving the perfect slice.
Then it's Donato's Pizza, your passport to pizza perfection.
Order now and treat yourself to an unforgettable taste experience.
Red Robin and Donato's Pizza, 225548 Rib Mountain Drive in Wausau.
Call 715-301-0019 or log on redrobin.com.
Red Robin and Donato's Pizza.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show, Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. Very happy to welcome our first guest for this evening, the head boys basketball coach at Auburndale High School, Chad Weinfurter. And Coach, first of all, thank you for coming back on the program.
Oh, it's great to be on. Thanks for having me.
11 wins, 2 losses overall, 7-1 in the conference. From the outside looking in, looks like a good start. From the inside looking out, how does it look?
Yeah, I'm happy with where we're at. The only 2 losses we have are to Columbus Catholic and Marathon, 2 great programs, great teams this year. So I think we're off to a great start.
Coach, I'm going to jump into the Neilsville game because I know I shot you a couple texts after that just to I was appreciative because I got to watch a great game on my couch with an adult beverage, and I couldn't see your sideline real well, but here's what I thought. One of the best games from a spectator, just cool the way the teams went back and forth, and the way it played out when maybe it looked like one team was done, then it looked like the next team was done. I don't know, 4 overtimes. It was just a lot of fun to watch. I think something at the end of the day, as stressful as it can be, because you want to get, you want to help your team win. The kids are putting out this effort. You actually have enough players without foul trouble for a degree to finish the game. And I don't know, what was it like being part of that? It had to be a lot of fun, I think, even though there can be difficult moments in that game too.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and we took a lot of, learning moments from that game. I was talking to Coach Jacobson about it at Marathon, and he said, what a great way to work on end game stuff. I said, yeah, I'd rather not do 4 overtimes. The kids were really resilient, and there were many times, like you said, both teams could have easily gave in and said, this is it, and it just ended up we had the ball in our hands the last time, and Evan was able to make that 3 at the buzzer, and it turned out real well for us.
What do you find out in a game like that other than, the win is great, but to have to go up that mountain 4 overtimes, to dig that deep for these young men to play deeper than a normal game, what did you find out about your guys? Maybe you didn't know, or did you find out anything that you didn't already know?
Well, I think it's something great you can look back on, like, when you're in another close game that never give up, that you never know until that final buzzer rings, that we've got it in us, that we can make that happen. And I think sometimes until a kid or a group of kids make those plays, they may not believe they can do it, but I think it just gives us a little confidence in those close games.
Well, and I always like to ask, because I've been there before. You get there, sometimes do you let them play it out? Do you call the timeout? You guys obviously chose to call the timeout, and then you still come out of that timeout sometimes. No, you go in it with confidence as a coach, knowing this is what we're going to run. We've worked on some of these situations. I have the idea in my head, which is why I took the timeout. How close was what they ran to get that shot? Sometimes it's so much about kids making plays as much as other times it's like execution. What would you chalk that win up to on that last shot or last play?
Well, we like to call those just kind of scramble situations. We had one, I don't remember if it was the end of the first or second overtime, where Caden Weinfurter had an open 3, well, as open as he can get, against their defense, and it just went off the back rim, and we ran something similar to that, but it was kind of up to Evan. I said, I don't know how much pressure. They aren't going to want to foul because we're in the bonus. So I said, just push it as far as you can, and if somebody comes up on you, give it up, and we'll get a shot. Otherwise, take it yourself. And actually, it just worked out great, where he was able to, that old rule, you get 1 dribble per second, and he was able to use all that dribbling and then got it up before the buzzer went off. So it was pretty close to script, but still, you got to make the shot to make the play work.
And how about looking at your personnel? Again, doing what we do behind the mics, looking on paper here, following things when we can of the teams in the area. It's just another, off to awesome start. 7-1, 11-2 overall, and your kids are, they execute, they play. It's just your program. It's always top of that conference. It's always there. It always is established, and the kids and the coaching and your teams are always very successful. Anything. I see a consistency. I see guys always stepping up to the plate for your program and your team. Any differences in this team that you see, or personnel-wise, what you want to share about the great kids you got to work with?
Yeah, we're built a little different this year. We've got a couple of 6'7" kids, but they're not dominant inside players. One, Thomas, always a junior, first year on varsity, had a couple knee surgeries his 8th grade year, his freshman year, so he's got a lot in front of him. He's not the strongest kid in the world. And then we got my son, who's 6'7", but he's in line to become our all-time leading 3-point shooter, because that's a requirement. A coach's kid's got to shoot or be able to shoot. And then the one kid that's taken a huge leap for us this year is Caden Anderson. He's our leading scorer. He and Cade, both average between 16 and 19 a game. They're both averaging 7 or 8 rebounds, and they complement each other real well because they both can play inside, they both can play outside. Those two really stick out. And then, like I said, Evan Scholl's a very steady point guard for us, and Blake Rabb is our 5th starter. He also played a lot as a sophomore last year on our team. So it's nice to have those four back and mix in a kid like Thomas Owie, and then Aiden Cherney off the bench is another senior. We really value seniors, like a lot of programs do, and even though guys like Aiden Cherney and Mason Meisner didn't get a lot of time last year as juniors and spent a lot of time on JV, they're huge contributors as seniors, and I think that's really a key to our program is getting those guys to believe that once they get their shot on varsity, we're going to be able to be a complete team.
Again, we're talking to Coach Chad Weinfurter of the Auburndale Eagles, our coach guest this week on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Every week, me and Jeff go over a lot of the games of the previous week and some of the top performers and leading scorers and the like. And there's been a consistency. You mentioned Caden and Caden. I guess my question is real quickly is when somebody yells Caden on your team, who turns? Or do they both turn?
Well, they've got, just like a lot of high school kids, they've got nicknames for each other, and I don't know if I can even keep track of all the different things they call each other. I try to use their last names. I'm usually it's Anderson and Weinfurter and stuff like that. And, yeah, we've had that the past few years. We got Caden and Caden this year. We've had Mason and Mason, and I guess it's more confusing for me. They usually know what I'm talking about more than I do, I guess.
And again, going back to your personnel coach, I think it's I don't know. I'm only sitting in the youth levels, but it's a lot of fun. As much as it can be hard for the kid, maybe sometimes just to coach your kids and get that extra family time in a sport everybody loves, and maybe a different relationship from the father and son thing when it's coach and player, but it still works. I know it's obviously a big deal to coach that cares about his program, his kids, his sports, and his own individual kids to get to coach your kids. How much fun has it been, and maybe even bittersweet now because, he's in his last year and the games are counting down, and unfortunately graduation doesn't stop for anybody. How big a deal has it been to coach your kids over the years?
It's like you said, it's a blessing. I'm sure sometimes they think it's a curse. And honestly, my oldest son tells me I've mellowed quite a bit since I've coached him compared to Cade now. But, my middle son, Cooper, student teaching, he's on the staff now with us. And so this season, it's a pretty special season from that standpoint. That, it's the last year I'm going to coach one of my sons. One of my other sons is on the staff. And the group that's seniors, I've coached them since third grade. So, they're like stepsons to me. It's been a blessing, and Jeff, honestly, it's gone way too fast. I wish I could slow things down. I really enjoyed it when my kids were young and they were around my players, and my players treated them like gold, and now they're doing the same thing to my assistant sons. So it is a bittersweet thing for sure.
I wanted to ask you briefly about last year because you had a great run in the postseason, and in terms of how that may help some of the guys who are around it, and part of it big time between the lines. But what you did in the playoffs to be able to beat Marathon in that sectional game after losing to them twice during the regular season, obviously how good that Marathon team was, and then to really play a fantastic game in that sectional final as well. Obviously, it's disappointing to come that close to state and come up just short, but yet to play as well as you did was still, I thought, incredibly impressive against St. Mary Catholic. Number one, how good was that run in the playoffs last year, and how much does that maybe had some impetus for the offseason and the good start you had this year?
Yeah, thanks. It was a fun run. Start with the regional final against Wega. They had a really nice team too, and very competitive. And then, that game against at Marshfield against Marathon, where we were down by 11 at half, and just the resiliency and the second half might be the best half of basketball we played at Auburndale in a while against them. And then, that St. Mary Catholic team. I mean, just watching them play, and they had so many guys that could score, and so many guys that can handle the ball and get up and down the court. And sometimes I felt we were playing maybe a little too fast with them. But it was a great run. It was a really tough loss. Like you said, that step before the state tournament, I really wanted it for those kids is really, coaches say this all the time, but it truly was a great group of kids. And then, I think it gave some of the kids coming back and some of the kids looking to step up into these spots. They saw how fun it was and playing in front of the big crowds again. After COVID, the gyms didn't start filling up right away. But last year it was, those were three highly intense games with great crowds and great atmospheres. And you just don't get that in many of the other sports.
And diving into conference a little bit, again, it's like a broken record. We're looking at the teams at the top again, and the Merriwood duking it out. And it's, you got 7 wins with you in Marathon, and 5-5 with Stratford and Edgar. Everybody's over double digits or hit right at it with 10. So just, again, and then for the team, Assumption and Newman, they have some teams that are going to war with you with a lot of youth. The makeup of this conference is always so difficult. I think it ultimately prepares you for these tough playoff runs, and then obviously you also have the downside where sometimes you run into each other again, and it just becomes difficult. And I think there's a couple teams this year too up in the north that you're never gonna you're not gonna take lightly at all, because it could be a very difficult one. How about just your overall impressions of the conference this season, as it seems to be comparable to all the seasons when those top teams are duking it out?
Yeah, right now everybody's chasing Marathon. I thought we didn't play as bad as the score probably indicated. We missed shots that we normally make, and they had obviously a lot to do with that. But then you go with Edgar, whose senior class is really strong, Stratford, who's well coached and always has athletes, and we were really fortunate to go on the road right before Christmas and get 2 wins against them. I didn't know how that week was going to turn out. And then, like you said, Assumption, Newman, both have strong sophomore classes. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with, not only in the next couple of years, but the second half of the season here. And like you said, we go to Rib Lake tomorrow night, and that is not an easy place to play, and they're a very talented team. So with all those counting as conference games, you got to be on your game every single night. And I know we say this every year, but it's the absolute truth.
When you look at that game at Rib Lake, looking ahead to the next week, that's one of the interesting games that coming up right tomorrow night. What is the challenge? Number one, when Rib Lake is good, that gym becomes a real hive to go into, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. It's unique. Actually, Mr. Woody, who was an AD and a coach up there for a long time, I asked him if they'd ever talked about maybe putting a different gym up, and he said no, they love having that advantage over people that aren't used to playing in a gym that tight, and it truly does give them a home court advantage. And like you said, when they have a good team, they're tough to play up there, and they definitely have one this year. They've got some kids who can really play, and watching them on film, I couldn't be more impressed.
And jumping around with your schedule yet, obviously people have a heavy focus within the conference, as you always do, night in and night out. But anything on the docket yet for your non-conference games you guys are really looking forward to challenge yourselves, or some teams that you just play out of consistency every year that fill your non-conference schedule?
Well, we had Pucelli earlier, but they had lost a couple of their guys. They played outstanding against us, and I thought that was a real big game. But coming up, we have Loyal, we have Amherst, we have Crandon, who all play different styles. And I think I look forward to that more than maybe how good they are. It's tough to schedule nowadays sometimes too. With travel and the 24 games is tight. So we lost a couple teams last year. It would be nice to play Pittsville, but they decided to schedule somebody else. So it'd be interesting to see what Amherst offers with the physicality they have. And that's usually a late season game. I think we play them in February again. That one is one that, no matter what the record is, they're going to have good athletes and they're going to be physical. So that's probably one of them I'd point out.
And I know you guys as coaches always look to the next day in Rib Lake, but it is very interesting to see. And you mentioned the fact you got those really good wins against Stratford and Edgar on the road the first time around, and you just faced off against Marathon recently. You faced those 3 teams to wrap up the regular season. It's kind of a double-edged sword in a sense that you don't get an opportunity to impress the computers for the seedings because you play at that late level. But going into the playoffs, playing those 3 games to wrap up your regular season, is that a good way to go into the postseason?
I think it is, because those are going to be like playoff games. All 3 of them, they'll be high-intensity, competitive, physical games, and that's what you're going to see in the playoffs. And I think that's what really helped us last year. In our home tournament, we played Waiwega in the championship game, and they were physical and fast, and I mean, just beat us up a little bit, and we were able to pull that out, and we knew that regional final was coming, and I thought that really helped us going into that sectional game against Marathon. So I really think our half sectional is loaded with really good teams. Edgar's back in there. We have Stratford Marathon. It's like a mini conference tournament, and then you throw some of the other teams that come down from the north. I think Washburn's in our half sectional this year, and I think they're like 8-1 the last time I checked. Nobody wants to make that trip to Lake Superior, so it'll be interesting for sure down the stretch.
And how about just for your team in general? Obviously, you said a lot of great things about them, a lot of praise, things that you really enjoy about what they're bringing to the court right now and the spot you feel they're at. Going down the stretch and into your next games, what's the biggest thing you want to see from them in terms of what you want them to be consistent at that'll, I guess, give you guys the most success as you finish out your season here?
I think just maintaining that level of play no matter who you're playing. I just thought in the Marathon game we came out a little tight for the most part. My son carried us a little bit early, and we were able to battle back and get within like 10 or 11 at halftime. But just that consistency. We've been a really good rebounding team. We've taken care of the ball really well. One thing I'm looking for, I guess, down the road here is just a little uptick in our field goal percentage. I know we have the kids to do it. I think some of them just need to see a few shots go in, and we could take off and really become a tough team, in February and March.
Jeff, anything else for the coach?
No, just best of luck against Rib Lake. I'm assuming, they've outlawed that play, so you'll take your barking dog play from the baseline inbounds where you run out one door and back in the other in that small Cracker Jack box. But they best of luck on Thursday. I know it's not an easy place to play, but it's a great matchup, another chance for your team to test themselves in one of those things that, you're mentioning with these different environments and different teams that present different challenges.
Yeah, that's part of the reason you coach and the kids play is to get all these different experiences. And, to go play in a gym like Rib Lake where it's going to be loud and they have a competitive team and all those types of things, that I think it just works to your advantage for the rest of the season.
Coach Chad Weinfurter of the Auburndale Eagles. Again, 11-2 overall, 7-1 in the Merowith South. Coach, again, really appreciate you spending a little time with us. Best of luck tomorrow at Rib Lake, and best of luck throughout the rest of the season.
Thanks. Appreciate you guys having me on.
We're going to take a quick time out and then come back and talk a little bit about girls basketball, what's going on as we continue. With Jeff Grass, I'm Chad Holmes. Big High School Sports Show, Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
Number 1 versus number 1 in boys basketball certainly lives up to the hype. I'm Travis Wilson, and this is a WisSports.net Minute brought to you by NFHSNetwork.com. More high school sports news after this.
Do you ever wish you could be in 2 places at once? With homework, carpool, practice, and everything else, sometimes you just can't make it to every game. But the NFHS Network's streaming platform makes that a little easier. For just $11.99 a month, you can watch unlimited high school sports live and on demand, at home or on the go. You can watch online or on one of our mobile or connected TV apps. Visit NFHSNetwork.com and subscribe today to never miss another game.
It was perhaps the game of the year in the state of Wisconsin, and Saturday's non-conference boys basketball matchup between Wisconsin Lutheran and host De Pere did not disappoint. Riding a 42-game overall winning streak as the defending Division I state champions, De Pere has been the top-ranked team in the WisSports.net D1 coaches poll all season. Undefeated as well, including a win over rival Pewaukee, Wisconsin Lutheran entered as the number 1 team in Division II. The visiting Vikings led 26-20 at halftime, and the game remained close the entire way, with Wisconsin Lutheran holding on for a 70-68 win. Duke commit Con Knippel, one of the favorites for the state's coveted Mr. Basketball, was too much for De Pere, scoring 38 points, including 6 made three-pointers. Logan Reinfleisch added 12 for Wisco, while Badgers junior commit Zach Kinziger had a team-high 19 for De Pere. In another key Saturday game, Division III top-ranked St. Thomas More down Kenosha St. Joseph 79-58, with senior standouts Amari McCautry and Sokoa Canoe combining for 57 points. There's plenty of news and analysis to be found over at wisports.net right now, including a look at some changes to proposed conference realignment from the WIAA, an updated football state record book, plus Mark Miller breaks down the top contenders for Mr. Basketball. This has been a wisports.net Minute. Check us out online at wisports.net.
Take your career to the next level with Graphic Packaging International. Work with a team to make Hot Pocket sleeves and the food trays you find at our local fair. Join the GPI team and experience the benefits of one of the highest paying manufacturers in the area, starting at almost $22.55 per hour. Enjoy job security, a clean facility, and an excellent benefits package, including a week of vacation after 4 months and 2 weeks after a year. Apply today at graphicpkg.com and elevate your career with Graphic Packaging.
Winter sports are here. Align your young athletes and yourself with health by scheduling an appointment with Dr. Sarah at Shine Chiropractic in Rib Mountain. Stay in the game with our comprehensive 3-point neurological exam, safe for the entire family. Don't let the daily grind keep you and your student athletes on the sidelines this year. Call Dr. Sarah at 715-298-5104. That's 715-298-5104 in Rib Mountain today.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show, Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. I tell you, you light up when you talk to those Merriwood Conference South Division boys basketball coaches.
Well,
it's like old home week for you.
You know what? It's like reliving your high school memories. Like somebody still believes you got something to cling to from your coaching days. So I don't know.
And you don't have to explain yourself when you talk to these guys because you've talked to them so many times.
Yeah.
On sidelines and everything else, and at practice, at events, and it's like you just bang.
The cool thing is the minute we talk about, you say, I get this guy, and you text them or you call, it's instant. There's no hesitation. Yeah, I'll be there. I got it. And so it's nice to see that even though you thought, maybe they didn't like me that much, go along the way, they reach out and they cover it, and it's still same old habit. They're getting the job done. They're presenting these great teams and programs and doing it for the love of the game, for the love of the kids, and at a high success rate too, from what you see out of it. So it's cool to see and cool to hear what Coach Weinfurter was able to share with us about his program.
Let's turn to the girls for this segment. Wisconsin Valley Conference, you got Marshfield and Spash, still undefeated in the league. Marshfield 5-0 in conference, 9-5 overall. Stevens Point 4-0 in the conference, 8-6 overall. Then Wisconsin Rapids at 3-1 in the league. They're 4-10 overall. Wausau West 3-3 in conference, 5-9 overall. Merrill 1-3 in the conference, 7-6 overall. And then Wausau East 1-5 in conference, 5-10 overall. And DC Everest 0-5 in the league, 2-13 overall. But the action the last two nights, Monday night makeup game from last Friday. Marshfield defeated Wausau West 71-50. Ashley Grankrovitz at 15. Mackenzie Holm, Zayda Kolbeck 14 each for the Tigers. Ayla Christensen 17. Kelly Cray 13. Paige Anderson 11 for the Warriors. Eau Claire North on Monday defeated Wausau East 60-47. A game where the Lumberjacks led at halftime 31-29. Medford beat Merrill. It was a non-conference game, but those teams in the same Division II bracket, so significance there. Medford 63, Merrill 60. And then last night, congrats to DC Everest. It's been a rough go of it, but the Evergreens get a big win, 50-49 against Chippewa Falls. Kirsten Hall, 24 points. Kelsey Woolley, 11 for the Evergreens. Good game in Eau Claire last night. Wausau West beat Eau Claire North. Another game involving teams in the same sectional bracket, 72-69. Ayla Christensen, big night for the Warriors, 26 points. And Stevens Point wins a non-conference game at Appleton East, 59-53. Jada Seibert, 29 points. So, again, as we look at this league, And in Marshfield, I should mention, I was going to save it for the Great Northern discussion. So I think we'll talk about they fell to Lakeland. We'll go more detail in the Great Northern segment. But Stevens Point is starting to win some of these non-conference games. Early, they were losing them. And again, first-year head coach, I think they are a team to keep an eye on. Again, we're waiting for that Spash Marshfield matchup to come. But I think Stevens Point's one that's kind of starting to creep up a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I think, anytime you can go see that improvement from, in your team, you're taking some, first-year coach, you're building the foundation. You're keeping some of the things that were successful that some of the returning players you feel comfortable in. You've got to add your own touches and tweaks. There's a lot of evaluation on what's working, what's not. So it's just this overall scheme, and I think if you can see some of those marks being hit in the second half of your season, once you've got the kids to buckle down under the system that you fully want to run, it starts turning into some W's. And I think it's got to play out in a couple more games for Spash, but I think you're starting to see that little more consistency. And the non-conference games that they took, which weren't bad losses because they played some pretty good teams in that stretch, I think is also going to pay off an element of toughness and execution that the coach wants to see as the games wind down. About 10 games left for the season for Spash. Marshfield, I think you've seen that dominance in the conference. They West, who's in the middle of the pack, they went in a heavy hit on the 71-50 win there. Rapids is still a team. They're doing good in the conference. They're 3-1, but the overall record doesn't match where you're sitting in the conference. And then a comparable team that will hit on. They lost to Mosinee pretty significantly Tuesday night. For West, a nice win. I think again, first year coach when you can get those.
They won 3 or 4 now.
Yeah, and the one at Eau Claire North on the road, tight one as indicated by the score. I think is a good win and things that you continue to build on as the season. And you have some opposites, too, where Coach DeBoer came on earlier in the season and talked about how the conference is tough, and he feels but they're 7-6 overall, so they try to get some of those non-conference games. It'll be interesting to see because for West and Merrill, that's a little jockeying of position right there at 4-5 in their next game. And for East, when they're trying to build and stuff, as a coach, you want to see that if you have the lead, you want to own it. You want a team to come back. So I'm sure there's evaluation.
And that's back-to-back because they led West at halftime last week as well.
And so those are things you want to correct and say when we put our foot on the accelerator and we get out there and work hard enough to get that lead, we've got to own it, hold it, and make sure the mistakes that are killing us don't keep continuing to happen and put an end to that. So it doesn't get any easier for them because on Friday I think they have Spash or they're at Spash. So tough one to reevaluate that one on.
Great Northern, Lakeland 6-0, 13-2 overall. Rhinelander 5-1, 10-4 overall. Mosinee 4-2 in the conference, 11-4 overall. Medford 3-3 in the conference, 7-10 overall. Northern Pines, Antigo, and Tomahawk. The rest of the teams, 2-4 for Pines, 1-5 Antigo, Tomahawk 0-6. And one thing, even beyond, Lakeland beat Marshfield last night, 72-54. Christina Ouimet 38 points. I mean, big. Ava Evenhouse 19. Mosinee beat Wisconsin Rapids 80-58. Talon Jersley 31 points. Mentioned Medford beat Merrill. Good results for the GNC against the Valley. I mean, that's something that kind of jumps out, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. If you want conference bragging rights to say whose conference is weighing out better when you're getting all those W's in one conference versus the other, and some of those significant where they're 20+ points. Is a big deal. I mean, Lakeland, you know their dominance. Well, that's a handful. I mean, to say, I might as well just say she basically had 40 because 38 points is close enough. That's still a lot of points to fill in there, a lot to stop when you can do that against a good team that's leading another conference, too. Rhinelander, just to jump out ahead, next Tuesday, they'll go out and test themselves against Spash, kind of see where they stand. And they got the freshman Clark that puts up a lot of points. For Mosinee, I thought a big win against Wisconsin Rapids by 22 points. But again, those teams, they're all sitting at the top of their conference. We think Lakeland's a heavy favorite, obviously. Rhinelander and Mosinee duking out a little bit. But again, double-digit wins, big marks, 13-2, 10-4, 11-4. And I think that's a big deal. Mosinee is going to pop up and challenge themselves too a little bit. It's farther ahead, but when I saw it on the schedule last night, they got Neilsville, so that'll be another good game for them to to play, and I think they host them, so nice to get them at home.
Merriwood South girls, Assumption still perfect, 9-0 in the conference, 14-0 overall. Auburndale 8-1 in the conference, 11-4 overall. Stratford 6-4 in the league, 8-8 overall. Edgar 5-5 in conference, 7-8. Marathon 2-8 in the conference, 5-11, and Newman 1-9 in league, 2-13. Some of the Assumption, couple of wins. They beat Newman last Thursday, 64-34, game that I had right here on WXCO. Jordan Jaglinski, 7 triples for the Royals, 22 points. Sarah Shaw, 18. Evie Bates, 16 for the Cards. And then last night, Assumption beat Edgar, 58-36. Addie Vollert, 21. Anna Schooley, 20 for Assumption. Stratford, a big win. They beat Auburndale in overtime, 58-52 on Thursday. Kayla Casperson, 17 for the Tigers. Maya Katzenberger, 18 for Auburndale. And then Stratford backed it up with a 39-33 win against Marathon last night. Casperson, 10 points. Miley Halkey, 14 for Marathon. And Edgar split. I mentioned they lost to Assumption, but they did beat Marathon last Thursday, 50-37. So, again, Assumption, I saw them again against Newman. I thought Newman actually played pretty well. They were right there for the entirety of the first half, but then the 3-point field goals kind of stretched things out for Assumption. And that Stratford win. I mean, Stratford, I had seen them early against Marathon. I wasn't so sure about them, but those were 2 big wins, and that puts them right there in 3rd place in the conference.
Yeah, Assumption, first off, got a lot of kids that can score. They play the transition ball really well. That pressure just seems to get to teams. Most of the time they wear it down, and then they're getting the looks they want from the 3-point line or in transition for the layups and short jump shots. So Assumption, pretty dangerous team, which is why they had that unblemished mark both overall and at the top of the conference.
And real fast, I missed one on the next page. I should turn my pages.
Go for it.
And Auburndale last night beat Newman 48-37.
So after you get to the next games, it's teams, they're just getting the job done in some of those wins. I mean, Auburndale, they didn't blow out Newman. They won by 11, so kind of a tight one there. They lost a tight one to Stratford. Stratford won the tight one against Auburndale by 6. Turned around and won a tight one against Marathon by 6. So these games are all within reach for both those teams, but I think Stratford, with the consistency of pulling out those 2 close games in the last couple days, it puts himself in a nice spot. Now, Auburndale, Assumption are out there a little bit with those 1-loss marks, but for Stratford to solidify that 3rd place, they're doing the job and staying consistent with how they're playing. Edgar at the 500 mark beat Marathon, who's behind him, but then turned around, played the buzzkill that's Assumption, and lost by 20. So I think them and then you got Marathon and Newman Catholic still just kind of looking to get some of the W's here, and hoping to find the ones that don't have the Athens and the Phillips, are probably looking to find them when they play the crossover games that are coming up.
Merriwood North girls, you got Athens 9-1, 10-6. Phillips 7-1, 13-2 overall. Abbotsford over 500 at 5-4, 8-6 overall. Rib Lake 3-7, 5-10. Prentice 2-8, 4-10. Chequamegon 0-9, 3-11. Athens beat Abbotsford in a significant game in the conference last Thursday, 54-44. Sophia Coker 22, Giselle Hartwig 13. And Athens also beat Rib Lake last night, 56-27. Coker 17, Hartwig 16. We seem to see those two always leading the way for the Athens Blue Jays. And Phillips, it was a good night, good week, I should say, for the numbers for Phillips. Friday they beat Prentice. And I think that was the only game that we saw Friday night. They had a boys-girls doubleheader up north, away from most of the really heavy stuff. And Phillips beat Prentice Friday, 83-28. Matea Eckert, 19. Casey Egerbrecht, 18. Monday, 93-33. Phillips over Gilman. Egerbrecht, 27. Eckert, 21. And then last night, 78-20 over Chequamegon. Phillips, and you said it last week, you saw them play against Newman. They are a team that really isn't good in transition.
Yeah, their points come off the girls' ability to run the floor. I mean, it doesn't really hit the ground. Outlet comes, or the turnover, wherever it comes, and it's boom, boom, couple passes up for a layup. So not surprised by the high volume of points because of the style that they play and the way they move up and down the floor, but also the high percentages. And as well as that, a couple of those girls on the team will go out and drill the 3 on you if you back off and try to play them off the drive. So I know Athens just has played a couple more conference games than Phillips has, and I think Phillips beat them the first time around. I think there's one more game coming. But I still think,
I'm guessing Athens still has to play Assumption, which
Yes.
Phillips already did. They were only lost in
and
conference.
played them well.
Yes.
So I think Phillips at the end of the day will own the top of that conference by themselves. But again, nonetheless, a team that can look to see what they do in the postseason with the style that they play. And, sometimes you want to give the North that representation, because as much as we say sometimes the Central Wisconsin doesn't get the right vibe, the northern part of the state doesn't get as much respect as they should at times too. And I hear people talk about basketball geographically.
CWC East, Bondwell still 6-0, 13-2 overall. Whitburn 5-1, 12-1 overall. Wyawega 4-2 in the conference. They are 8-5 overall. Then Amherst at 3-3, Shiocton 3-4, Manawa 2-4, Menominee Indian 1-4, Iola Scandinavia 0-6. Last night, Whitburn stays right on the heels of Bondwell, heading into a massive game, which we've been looking forward to. They beat Amherst last night, 71-45. Bondwell continues to roll. They beat Manawa 52-23 last Thursday. But when you look at it, boy, I mean, that's mentioned it earlier. The first time Bondwell went to Wittenberg and really took it to them, Wittenberg has another chance coming up, but 12-1. I mean, they're still doing the job, and that was a good win against Amherst. Amherst is always a very solid program, and that was, I thought, last night a good win for Whitburn going into that Bondwell game.
Yeah, and I obviously listened to you when you did your broadcast, as well as saw it physically on the TV. They Amherst was a solid basketball team. They had some people that could score. They had some physicality. They had some bigger girls. So not a pushover, I would think, in terms of the schedule in that conference. And for Wittenberg to go out and get a solid win margin in terms of the point differential, I think is a big deal to continue to set themselves up for that showdown that's coming on Thursday. And obviously Bondwell is a team that's never an easy one, but I think something that Wittenberg is looking for the challenge. They have two girls that score 40 points a night between the two of them because of the numbers that they're averaging. So I think, for Wittenberg, give them credit. After that mark, they've held true to where they want to get back to give themselves a chance to share that conference lead with the W on Thursday. And it's sometimes, I know it's worrisome. Sometimes we got to go over and do it in the other person's gym, but it's sometimes it's not sometimes.
We've seen this happen a number of times.
If you can get over there and take care of it, it's a great feeling to go steal one in somebody else's court.
And we've seen this where a team will lose at home the first time in the high school ranks in recent years, and in these kind of matchups, and then turn it around the second time. It's going to be very interesting. CWC North, Northern Lutheran is 6-6 overall, 1-2 in the conference, behind 3-0 Gresham and 3-1 Bowler. Bowler beat Northern Monday, 64-44. And then last night, Northern beat Faith Christian, 52-7, sort of a football score looking like that. But Northern able to split their games the last two nights. And like you said about the boys, sometimes we'll go weeks without seeing them play.
Yeah.
Then they'll play Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah, it's weather dictates, time management of different schools and what their schedules are. So at the end of the day, the kids want to get out of practice and get those games in. And when you can roll no matter what nobody's schedule's ever perfect as they want. And we get hiccups in there with injuries, sicknesses, things going on between the school schedule and the athletic schedule. So I think when when it's time to get your kids to games and when they got to get off the practice floor and beat on somebody else. So I think for Northern, it's a big deal to get those games and try to drive that consistency and fill up those W's as best they can.
We're going to take a break. We still have another hour to go here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Coming up next to start off hour number 2, as we do each week, it is our student-athlete guest, and we'll get a chance to talk to one of the top scorers in the Wisconsin Valley Conference. We'll talk to Cohen Preby coming up next from the DC Everest Evergreens. That's coming up. The Big High School Sports Show. One more hour to go here on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app.
We are the NFHS. That stands for the National Federation of State High School Associations. But really, what we stand for, together with the WIAA, are the 178,000 high school sports students in Wisconsin. And so we stand. We stand for the runners, soccer and basketball players. We stand for their coaches, administrators, and officials. We stand for the swimmers, football players, and wrestlers. We stand for the golfers, softball, and volleyball players. We stand as the national leader and advocate for high school athletics and all who participate in them and make them possible. Because it is our purpose to ensure that high school students get to play, perform, and compete together. To learn more about who we are and what we stand for, visit nfhs.org.
If you're looking for your next ride, check out Mankey GMC in Schofield. Formerly Fred Miller Automotive, Mankey GMC serves Schofield, Wausau, Marshfield, and Stevens Point with a huge selection of new and pre-owned vehicles. Explore a range of top-notch SUVs like Acadia, Terrain, and Yukon, or choose from the rugged Sierra truck lineup, or even a certified pre-owned vehicle. No matter your dream vehicle awaits at Mankey GMC, 448 Grand Avenue in Schofield, and online at MankeyAuto.com. Mankey GMC in Schofield, where your journey begins.
Parents of class of 2024 seniors, graduation is a few months away. Do you know where your photos are? Melissa Sullivan of Picks and Pieces Photo and Digital Organizing can help. Mel is a professionally trained photo manager who can convert printed photos and outdated media to digital formats, consolidate and organize your digital photo collection, and create custom photo books, gifts, and slideshows. Preserve, organize, and share your priceless family memories today. Call Mel at 715-446-0762 or visit picksandpieces.com today to learn more. Again, that's PIX, the letter N, pieces.com.
A game without a crowd is just a scrimmage. A performance without an audience is just a rehearsal. Without your presence, high school sports and the performing arts aren't possible. Ensure that these essential extracurricular activities continue to enrich the lives of students in Wisconsin. Purchase a ticket to your local high school's game or performance.
This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
Are you an enthusiastic sports fan? Want to have fun and get in on the action?
Heck, yes. That'd be awesome.
Have great attention to detail? Want to stay active?
Definitely.
Want to give back to the student athletes in your community?
Obviously, yes.
Then you'd make an excellent high school sports official. We need more officials in Wisconsin, because with no high school officials, there are no high school sports. Sign up today at highschoolofficials.com.
And welcome back. It is the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes, and we are very happy to welcome our student athlete guest for this week from DC Everest Senior High School, outstanding junior boys basketball player Cohen Preby. Cohen, thank you for coming by.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And I like to make sure everybody realizes that despite me being around you for 20 years, when you were coaching for all those years at Newman Catholic, and all the years I've been at Wausau West, I actually went to DC Everest, so I got a little green in me, a little bit. But don't tell anybody at West. But I always like to be able to bring an evergreen on once in a while as well. But no, number one, congrats on the success you've had so far. Obviously, and it caught my attention. You had 38 last week against Chippewa Falls. You had another good effort last night on the road at Hortonville, correct?
Yep.
And generally. You've been a player on the varsity since a freshman.
Yeah.
The first question I'm going to ask you, how have you changed as a player since you started as a freshman, when you first started playing varsity basketball, up to this point? Where are the areas that perhaps you've improved the most or changed the most to help your team?
Yeah, I think since I was a freshman, I think I've grown a lot, like physically. Like when I started playing freshman ball, it was like when I was a freshman. It was like a big jump, obviously, from 8th grade playing travel ball. Like they were big dudes, so I had to just change like physically and like have my game where I'm more like shooting. And I think I've evolved since then, where I'm more a threat going down low and being able to drive and still shoot.
And another transition. I mean, I don't think, you're as a freshman, you're wide-eyed, you're trying to figure it out. Each year, you're like, I can contribute, I want to play this. And then you transform your role maybe from more leadership style, because now you got guys that will finally listen to you as you get a little older and you start to do stuff on the court. But even so, and not saying any coaches are better than the other, there's a transition when you have coaches changes too. How is that? I mean, because I know when I played and I coached for a while, I was always the same guy there coaching. I always had the same coach, and I know some guys are like, yeah, it's a good transition. Sometimes it's harder. Did your mindset change? Did you feel like you had to take on more to help out? And because I hear great things about your coach and about you guys as a team. And I guess walk us through a little bit when the coaching changed. What expectations you put on yourself, or maybe you didn't?
Yeah. So the coaching change, we had to still have a new system, and so I think it was more of like a leadership thing. We had to get all the guys, kind of running the same thing. And with a new coach coming in, we kind of ran a different system than my sophomore year than we did as a freshman. So I think, it's changing that. But I think it was I think Coach Drake does a really, really good job with us. And, he pushes us a lot. And I think he runs a good system. So I think it was good at the end of the day.
And how about jumping into some of your teammates? I mean, we'll always make the disclaimer, you might miss a guy, so I guess tell us about, for the people that haven't seen Everest basketball yet or are watching a different conference or different teams, maybe something about your teammates and what they bring to the team.
Yeah, so Casey Studeman, he's a junior. I think he brings a lot of leadership to the team. I think he runs the offense well. Me and him run a lot of pick and roll and handoffs. I think just like presence down low. He's like our big guy. Colin Ebersold, senior, he brings really good defense. Brings a lot of talking. So is Casey. They bring a lot of talking on defense. He cuts a lot, which really opens up our offense, which I think is great for us. Cade Felch is a really good shooter. Knock down anytime. He also moves the ball really well. Xavier Edwards, Cade and Xavier are both sophomores. Xavier he can drive really well, get to his left hand really well. I think he brings a scoring presence also. He plays really well defensively. And Zachary Jones, he comes off the bench. He brings great energy. Day and night in and night out. He's always on the bench, encouraging us, telling us what we're doing. And, when he gets on the floor, he's high energy, high ball pressure, getting ready to play.
Well, again, we're talking to Cohen Preby of DC Everest here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. So far this season, it has to be a big change because over the last number of years, there's always been a haul. At least one, sometimes two. How has that been different? Because, man, I mean, you don't see too many schools that have had that level of scoring from anybody. I imagine there's a bit of a transition for everybody to kind of develop their own roles without having somebody that, coming into any game that could be putting up 35 or 40 points a night.
Yeah, it was, Marcus and Colton were both obviously great players. So we had to change. I think we had to play more as a team. Mm-hmm. Bringing them, we could really just give them the ball and they would score. So, I mean, just, we had to learn how to play with each other, run more, two-man stuff, and, just being able to play more as a team.
When you look at so far, if you look strictly at the record right now, obviously there's some work to do. But we were talking in the first segment about within your conference, you still have a lot of conference play, and the games you played against teams like Stevens Point and Marshfield and West, who are in the upper echelon, and you beat a team in Wausau East that is above you as well. And your non-conference schedule is always very challenging in recent years as well. How do you think the process has been? Has it been difficult playing the teams you have? Have you been able to learn the lessons that I'm sure that you and your teammates and your coaches are hoping to? How have you looked at so far? Because obviously you'd love to win a little bit more, but do you feel like your guys are taking the steps that you need to maybe take advantage and be a team that can move up in the conference standings down the stretch?
Yeah, I think the hard non-conference schedule, I think it's a good thing. I'm hoping it pays off, later on when we get into the playoffs. We've been, we play good teams all year. So, when we play them, we're ready. We expect it. So, I think that's always a good thing. And, I think our guys, we're taking it. It's hard. We lose maybe a close game, and then we have to go and play another hard opponent.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not really an easy turnaround. So, we're always trying to learn on the fly, but then we have another hard opponent the next night. So, I mean, we're trying to take it as best as possible. Always trying to get better. take practice time like really valuable. Always trying to get better.
And what do you take? So many times before, it doesn't matter what grade level you're at, what school you play at the end of the day, you want to see your team on the top part of the scoreboard. It's just like a measuring stick. Like, yeah, we went out and played pretty, but we won by 1, game over, we win. Or we won by 20 or whatever it is. So sometimes I know teams can and players can beat themselves up over different things or certain reasons. But I'm sure in a solid program, you're analyzing stuff, you're looking for stuff to fix. For you as a player or your team, we talked off air how tough that side of the state is, Hortonville and the Fox Valley over there and those teams. And so, you learn a lot from your team that you can bring into the remainder of your season and the postseason and spring forth, I think, with what you can take from that. For you individually or you as a team, what do you guys take out of that loss? Because somebody that just looks at the score, you got beat up, and you're like, well, we might have learned something too and made us tougher.
Yeah, like last night, we try to look at we watch back the film and try to really analyze what some stuff that we did good and obviously keep doing that, but then stuff we got to improve on. So in today at practice, we just worked on what we needed to work on. It's trying to always work on the areas we need to improve at.
Do you find that there is a difference in how the game is played at all in different parts of the state? Because it does seem as though there's been so much success in the eastern part of the state in recent years.
Yeah.
Is it strictly the players, or is there anything that's done differently? Can you tell, or is it?
I don't know. The Fox Valley teams are always good. So, I honestly don't know.
Do you ever find that there's a level? I remember when we used to travel to different, if it was in conference, it was kind of seemed or central Wisconsin, it kind of seemed one way. Also, we went to a tournament down south. It's like, they don't call anything down here. You can take people out.
Yeah.
Do you ever find on an inconsistent level, a variety of how the game's played, and then you guys have to adjust your style? Because you've been to a handful of different places in those non-conference games, some tournaments here and there over Thanksgiving. Did you have one over Christmas too?
Yeah, we played in Green Bay.
Yeah, so you were in different parts of the state. Do you ever see a different, not saying anybody's reffing good or bad, but saying that there's a different style where you get to play more, you get to play less?
I think it's a little more. I think it's a little more physical when you head over there. I think and I'm not dissing on the rest, but I think it's a little bit more touchy. Around here, there's the fouls rack up a lot in the Valley games. So I think when we head over, and play the Fox Valley and Green Bay, I think the refs they're a little bit. You can push off a little bit more. You can hold on to them a little bit more.
You like one style more than the other?
Yeah, I like you hold on a little bit more. I don't like when they call out of fouls because I feel like then you can't really do anything. You try to wall up and they run into you and it's foul on you. So
we'll come back to the basketball here in just a moment. Wanted to kind of spread the wings a little bit. First, are you involved in any other sports?
Yeah, I play football.
Yeah. And it was a good year for DC Everest, a solid season. What position do you play?
I play receiver.
Yep. And in terms of, if you have a good season in the fall and your team does well and you do well, is it some kind of momentum that you're able to carry into the winter? Or does it end?
I think it's just the winning feeling, I guess. If we won a lot, feeling how it felt to win and then trying to bring that over to the winter. Having high confidence, we had a good fall. Now it's carried over to winter.
Is there a comparison in terms of your enjoyment of each of the sports? Because I know that you've been involved in a lot of basketball. Is football sort of an additional sport, or is the love close to basketball, or is it how do you look at that?
I like basketball. I like basketball a lot more. Football is kind of I still enjoy it and I like playing it, but I like basketball a lot more.
And are there a lot of guys on the basketball team that also join you on the football field? I got to imagine that only helps the situation with camaraderie and being around each other.
Yeah, for sure.
And somebody that obviously, at somebody that's been able to play varsity since a freshman, it's more than just the high school game. And I think a lot of folks don't realize that out of season, there's a lot of basketball that is played.
Yeah.
Could you maybe explain how much basketball that you have during the course of the year and other opportunities that you do have to play basketball?
Yeah. So in the spring, after the winter, in the spring we play AAU, which you travel around the state or different states, to go play. And obviously, to keep your game sharp, you always got to keep playing all the time. So with that, and then we run open gym in the summer, so we're doing that, and in the fall. So we're doing that over.
Can you compare the AAU games to the high school games that you play? Because obviously there's differences. The level of talent, I would say, that's probably because you have to basically earn your way onto some of these teams. But at the same time, and again, maybe I'm being unfair about this, but is the AAU a little more of an individual game where you're trying to impress people, or is the team aspect the same level as it is at the high school
I think
level?
some AAU teams, it's a lot about it individual, but the team I'm on, we play really well as a team, and I think when we play well as a team, like your individual game will come with that. So I think as long as but I think most AAU teams it's more like individual, like you're trying to show coaches like what you can do.
And which on your team, do you have any other local guys in the area that play with you?
Yeah, I play with some guys at East, like Jesse, Jaden, Charlie. West, I play with Griffin and Bennett. At Everest, I play with Zakari and Casey.
Okay. Are you already looking at the next level? Is that something that you think about? You're now in your junior year. Obviously, you've had a pretty good resume you built up. Are you looking towards the next level at this point?
Yeah, I do want to play at the next level.
Do people contact you at this point? Have you talked to anybody, or is it still something that's still to come?
It's still something. I'm trying to this summer. I'm gonna get more like involved with it and go take some visits and talk to coaches and stuff and go to camps.
Is there let's just fast forward. Is there a certain level you want to make it to? Is there a certain area you want to go? Sometimes people have their heart set like I got to be a Badger. I got to be a versus I'm going to over to UW Eau Claire. I mean,
yeah.
Do you want to stay in state, or has it not been that in depth of thought? Because I know junior year sometimes that's you got to start thinking about it, but you're like, it's still not close enough. I can keep putting this on. It depends on the type of guy you are. But go ahead.
Yeah, I actually want to go out of state. I don't like the cold weather, honestly. So I want to go down to like Florida.
Maybe to go all the way down, right?
Yeah, I want to go somewhere warm.
In school, what's your favorite class?
Besides gym.
Hey, gym is a class.
Exactly.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying gym is the class.
Yeah, but like probably math. I just it comes like pretty naturally easy to me. So.
Well, and again, like Russ, when you guys put up big numbers, you got to be able to add them up quickly in your head. I mean, that goes without saying.
I don't shoot well, so you can count me out of that.
And obviously you're very busy with your basketball and then during football season as well. What do you like to do to maybe get away from it all, to maybe chill a little bit?
Yeah, I like to hang out with my friends. My free time. We'll go hang out somewhere, play some video games or something like that.
Is it ever hard to manage being a student athlete? I mean, I think sometimes people that have one in their house and see all they go through, they're playing sports for this season. You got to focus on that. You've got the other side of the AAU basketball going on, plus you got to manage your grades, plus you're getting ready for college. I think sometimes it's underappreciated. This is almost job-like to a degree, because and you have to figure out your time management of what you can invest in, what you got to back off on. I mean, how easy going through it? Hard? Has its moments?
I mean, it has its moments. Like, tomorrow I have finals, so now I have, I'm studying, trying to study all the time with basketball. I'm always, if I'm not playing basketball, I'm studying. So, it's hard to find free time, but, when you get it, you got to make worth of it.
Who's your favorite team to play?
In just the Valley, or
generally? I mean, you could maybe somebody you played in a tournament. I mean, is there a team that you really, when you saw the schedule, they said, "Man, I'm really glad. I'm gonna really this is the team I want to really impress against."
Yeah, West and East, are always ones that we always look forward to going into. But non-conference, I'm actually looking forward to playing Mosinee this year. Another closer city. Getting. They're a really good team, so that would be a good game.
Speaking of the East, in the game that you played against them, and I know they're coming up again, and they're 11-2, and they're having a great year. What did your team do that night that really clicked to be able to beat a really good Wausau East team by 18 points? What worked that night that you're going to try to bottle the second time against them and against other teams coming down the stretch?
Yeah, I thought we played really well as a team. We shared. I think we really balanced scoring, that on the offensive end. But I think we really honed it in defensively. I think we put a lot of pressure on them and we rebounded really well against them. So if we can do that again, hopefully we get the same result.
with your time logged on the varsity court since you were a freshman, do you find you talked about a little bit of the transition of your roles, how you're wide-eyed right away, and then you got to become more old and responsible, right? So anything you see yourself, kind of like, oh yeah, I was like that, but now I'm gonna take somebody under their wing when they're younger and they get up there, or give them some extra advice, or is it just like, we're the Evergrades, we expect you to do it this way? And I mean, is there guys you look to, make sure that you get the right point across because you've been there and logged a lot of time? You can use that experience to help better your team or the rotation or the program?
Yeah, the underclassmen, I really try to, use my, what I did, try to make it better for them. Like stuff like, just like taking deep breaths, like it's going to be all right. Like just using what I did as a freshman and trying to help them as well and make it even better for them.
And you mentioned you'd like to, look to play at the next level. If you had to judge, let's just say you were graduating this year and you were going on, what would you say about your game? Because you learned as a freshman, it's bigger, stronger, faster, real fast, and you got to figure it out coming in from 8th grade basketball. What is something that you would want to improve in your game right now if you're jumping to that next level in the fall, from what you've seen of yourself in high school? What do you think you want to improve?
Yeah, to improve my game, I want to just defensively, honestly. I want to become more of a known defender. I really got to work on that in my game, especially the next level. Like defense is a huge thing, because everyone can score. So you really got to pride yourself on the defensive end. So that's what I want to get better at.
Do you have any personal goals when it comes to either stats or anything else, or even within the team concept? Your dreams before you graduate from Everest.
Yeah, we really want to get past regionals and get to sectionals as a team, and probably and win a conference championship before I leave. That'd definitely be our goals.
I guess for my last thing, best right now going down the stretch, as you guys, you're like Chad mentioned, it just doesn't feel like we're into a lot of conference games yet because you see some of these teams around. Some teams a couple teams have only played 3 games in the bottom part of that conference, but you're getting to 10 games left too when you hit that 14 mark and you've got 24. Something you really like about your team right now that you're like, yeah, this is what Everest is, and this is what we look to bring to a strength of the team, and then maybe something like, yeah, we want to polish this off for the rest of the season.
Yeah, for sure. I think we play really well offensively. I think if we keep that going, I think we can hang with a lot of teams offensively, but we really need to work on our defense. And, limiting teams to what they score. And, they're shooting high 3-point percentage against us. So, closing out on shooters more. But I think, as we go down the stretch, the season, we're trying to, right now in practice, we're really working on defense, trying to get that a lot better.
Do we ask juniors the question, or what do you think? Is it still
Go for it. He's been around, he's done a lot. He's been around long enough.
Because we usually ask it for seniors, because most of the time we bring seniors on, but, we decided, hey, you're doing good stuff. Based on what you've learned and, over the first, 2.5 years of your varsity career, and if you have a younger player just joining the program, like a freshman, and you could give a piece of advice of something that you've learned over the last couple of years to a young freshman, what would that be?
I think it's really just, enjoy your time. It goes by really fast. And, just enjoy every game, even the ups and downs, just, enjoy playing high school basketball. You'll never get to play it again. So, doing that, and it's fun every night. New game, it's fun, and just, cherish those moments.
Very good. Anything else, Jeff?
No, I just, appreciate the information about the program, letting us get a little insight on Everest basketball, and wish you the best of luck. I think you have Rapids on Friday, right?
Yep.
Okay, best of luck in that as the next one comes around.
Cohen Preby, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Good luck in the finals.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break, come back with more Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
Number 1 versus number 1 in boys basketball certainly lives up to the hype. I'm Travis Wilson, and this is a WisSports.net Minute brought to you by NFHSNetwork.com. More high school sports news after this.
Do you ever wish you could be in two places at once? With homework, carpool, practice, and everything else, sometimes you just can't make it to every game. But the NFHS Network's streaming platform makes that a little easier. For just $11.99 a month, you can watch unlimited high school sports live and on demand, at home or on the go. You can watch online or on one of our mobile or connected TV apps. Visit NFHSnetwork.com and subscribe today to never miss another game.
It was perhaps the game of the year in the state of Wisconsin, and Saturday's non-conference boys basketball matchup between Wisconsin Lutheran and host De Pere did not disappoint. Riding a 42-game overall winning streak as the defending Division I state champions, De Pere has been the top-ranked team in the WisSports.net D1 coaches poll all season. Undefeated as well, including a win over rival Pewaukee, Wisconsin Lutheran entered as the number 1 team in Division II. The visiting Vikings led 26-20 at halftime, and the game remained close the entire way, with Wisconsin Lutheran holding on for a 70-68 win. Duke commit Con Knippel, one of the favorites for the state's coveted Mr. Basketball, was too much for De Pere, scoring 38 points, including 6 made three-pointers. Logan Reinfleisch added 12 for Wisco, while Badgers junior commit Zach Kinziger had a team-high 19 for De Pere. In another key Saturday game, Division III top-ranked St. Thomas More downed Kenosha St. Joseph 79-58, with senior standouts Amari McCautry and Sokoa Canoe combining for 57 points. There's plenty of news and analysis to be found over at WisSports.net right now, including a look at some changes to proposed conference realignment from the WIAA, an updated football state record book, plus Mark Miller breaks down the top contenders for Mr. Basketball. This has been a WisSports.net Minute. Check us out online at WisSports.net.
Hungry for flavor-packed fun?
Dive into Red Robin's sizzling burgers, mouth-watering fries, and endless options.
Or maybe you're craving the perfect slice.
Then it's Donato's Pizza, your passport to pizza perfection.
Order now and treat yourself to an unforgettable taste experience.
Red Robin and Donato's Pizza, 225548 Rib Mountain Drive in Wausau.
Call 715-301-0019 or log on redrobin.com.
Red Robin and Donato's Pizza.
Are you an enthusiastic sports fan? Want to have fun and get in on the action?
Heck yes, that'd be awesome.
Have great attention to detail? Want to stay active?
Definitely.
Want to give back to the student athletes in your community?
Obviously, yes.
Then you'd make an excellent high school sports official. We need more officials in Wisconsin, because with no high school officials, there are no high school sports. Sign up today at highschoolofficials.com.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show, Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Again, thanks to our guests. We're very fortunate to get very good guests on the program. And Coach Weinfurter, obviously his team off to a great start. And Colin Preby has been just a consistent performer. He's averaging about 19 points per game so far this season. Again, been a varsity player since a freshman, doing a really nice job for DC Everest. And again, while the record isn't what they wanted, I would not be surprised to see that team get better as the season finishes, the regular season, in terms of the W's and the L's. Because as you said, I mean, you learn these lessons sometimes with this tough schedule, and they have a tough schedule.
Well, again, I don't remember all the advice I've ever heard you as you get older, but I do remember somebody always saying for coaching in programs and teams, it's what you're doing down the stretch. You can get to that point at different points of the season, last couple games, last half of the season. So, there's a lot of basketball left to be played in the Wisconsin Valley, a lot of basketball for Everest. They've challenged themselves in different ways. I still, from what we see out of them so far, they can be a very dangerous team. And Colin talked about a couple of the inconsistencies they want to make more consistent. So I think that's a team we're going to watch and see if they can make a jump up towards the top of that valley.
Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in hockey. Wisconsin Valley Conference, Stevens Point continues to lead the way. Panthers are 7-0 in the conference, 12-0-1 overall. Wausau West second in the conference, 4-1, 8-9 overall. Wisconsin Rapids 4-3 in the league, 11-3 overall. DC Everest 2-4 in the conference, 7-10 overall. Marshfield 1-5 in league, 8-10 overall. And East Merrill United 1-6 in the conference, 1-14 overall. looking at some of the results, again, limited amount of results in the past week, but last Thursday, a couple of Wisconsin Valley Conference games saw DC Everest beat EMU 3-0. Both goaltenders were very good in that game. Griffin Bennell recorded the shutout for DC Everest, 22 saves. Connor Burton had 44 stops in a tough luck loss for EMU. Stevens Point beat Marshfield 7-0. Jackson Schrader had a hat trick for the Panthers. Also, last Thursday in the Great Northern Conference, Mosinee beat Rhinelander 6-3. Lakeland over Wapaka 3-1, and Tomahawk topped Anago 5-2. Saturday, it was the Wausau West Hockey Invite, but the invite was only 1 day instead of 2 because of the weather on Friday. And on Saturday, Wausau West lost to Middleton 4-0. Julian Scalcucci had 34 saves for West. But last night, the Warriors finally got back on the winning track, snapping a 4-game losing streak, beating Eau Claire North 6-4. Chase Crass had a hat trick. Hendrik Stamro had 2 goals for the Warriors. Also last night, Wisconsin Rapids shut down EMU 8-0. Mosinee shut out Medford 10-0. Tomahawk staying atop the Great Northern Conference, beating Pine 7-1. Wapaka over Antigo 10-2. GNC is rather interesting. Got Tomahawk 6-0 in the conference. Then you have Wapaka at 5-1, Lakeland 4-1, Mosinee again. I think a team that could, in the second half of the season, make a bit of a move. Made it to state last season. They're 3-3 in the conference this year, but playing a little bit better. Pines and Antigo 2-4, Rhinelander 1-4, Medford 0-6. But obviously, I get a chance to see Wausau West quite a bit. They needed that win last night. They had struggled. They had been shut out back-to-back games. You don't see that very often. You don't see them lose 4 in a row. They do play a very tough schedule. But they fell behind 3-1 last night, but able to come back and win. And next week will be a huge week in the Valley. You got West hosting Wisconsin Rapids on Monday. Second and third place teams in the conference, and then a week from tomorrow, Stevens Point comes to Marathon Park as well. So a lot still to play for. The Warriors have a lot of conference games left, and I think they're happy to start playing some conference games after playing a lot of non-conference games in the past month. They have Marshfield tomorrow, Rapids Monday, Spash next Thursday. So still time for West to turn things around after a bit of a rough go of it in the last number of weeks.
Well, I think, as any coach and team, when, you obviously have to take into account the challenging teams they're playing, but, you also want to, people need that visual feel, so to speak, where you see, like we mentioned before, you see your score is higher than the other team's score on the scoreboard. I think so. You don't want things to weigh on you. You need to get back to winning ways. I think sometimes it's nice to come home when you've played a lot of non-conference games. Like, look, I'm just looking back to get into, you've gone out a little bit. Now you want to get back into some familiarity. Here's our conference. Here's what it's about. We've coached and played against this team. Let's do it again. And there's always that hunger and that vibe to continue to kind of put yourself in the best position as you come down the stretch. I have a quick one.
Yeah.
When they have a tie in the record, does that change anything in the playoffs in terms of how they get seeded? Does that tie way out in anything too heavily, or can it?
Well, hockey, they still have the coach's vote.
Okay.
So you can use that, any way you want to. I don't know how that would be determined in terms of if it was computerized. But I think a tie, I think, again, it depends who it's against. Much like a win or a loss. Who's it against? So you can actually say, if you say you're the team that tied Stevens Point, and that's a pretty good tie. The Stevens Point has all wins except for one tie. And so that's obviously a positive for them. And also wanted to mention the Central Wisconsin Storm. They got washed away. They were supposed to play both on Friday and Saturday, but both games were postponed. So they have not played in a while. They will not play until Saturday when they take on Beaver Dam, 5 o'clock at Greenheck. It will be a game that I have right here on Bull Falls Radio on Saturday, late afternoon. And Storm, 12-3 on the season, ranked second in the Wisconsin Prep Hockey State rankings. Superior, number 1. Storm, number 2. St. Croix Valley, number 3. Bay Area Ice Bears, number 4. Hayward, number 5. Hudson, number 6. The boys' rankings, Division 1, Stevens Point, number 1. Chippewa Falls, number 2. Bayport, number 3. Eau Claire Memorial, 4th. Brookfield, 5th. And Edgewood, number 6. And in Division 2 in hockey on the boys' side, New Richmond number 1, Oregon number 2, Amory number 3, River Falls number 4, Tomahawk, first place in the GNC, number 5, and Fond du Lac Springs, number 6. So, again, interesting hockey stuff going on. Going to have more hockey next week.
Well, a lot of games. I mean, you get these.
Well, because you're not going to be here next week.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring on more hockey.
I figured
I think I might bring on a couple of hockey guests next week.
Go load it up.
You know,
it'll be much more insightful than I will.
Well, you're going to be off doing some work, and I'm going to take advantage of that next week. And we'll see what we can come up with for next Wednesday. Add a little hockey on the side.
Sounds good.
And I'm sure you'll listen back to it.
I will follow it back to see what I don't know.
We're going to leave it there for now and come back and talk about a big week. Obviously, we got some makeups coming up because of Friday and some big conference games coming up as well. So we'll come back, preview what's coming ahead, and who knows, we may even have time to go into Jeff Gress's big list of interesting topics before we wrap things up. It's the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
So, how are the kids?
Well, Emily made the honor roll.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah, we're really proud of her. Tyler, on the other hand, though.
What's going on?
He's been moody lately, just feeling down and not like himself.
Oh, we've been there. Nick was struggling last spring. He was so anxious and stressed.
Really? What helped?
Well, he joined the soccer team. And ever since, he's been a lot happier. He has more energy, he's less stressed, and he's definitely in a better mood at home. It's made a huge difference.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad he's getting out of the house, he's getting some exercise, and he's off his phone for once. It's been good for his mental health.
Sounds like it's been good for your mental health, too.
Participating in Wisconsin high school sports improves students' physical and mental health. Encourage your son or daughter to get involved. This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
What's your idea of winter fun? If it's hitting the trails after a fresh snowfall and you're thinking new snowmobile, it's time to call CCU. That's Clover Belt Credit Union, the leader in financing fun. If you're thinking new four-wheel drive vehicle to get you to the downhill slopes or the cross-country trails, it's time to call CCU. That's Clover Belt Credit Union, the leader in financing fun. Quick, easy loan applications, friendly lenders, and great rates make CCU the lending leader in financing fun. If your idea of winter fun isn't in the snow, maybe hitting the highway in a new motorhome is the way to go. Just give CCU a call. Financing for motorhomes and winter getaways. When you think fun, think Clover Belt Credit Union. What are you waiting for? Life's too short and winter's too long. Call CCU for your great rate financing. Dial 715-842-5693 or apply online or from your smartphone. That's Clover Belt Credit Union. Local lenders lending local money, keeping our community strong.
We are the NFHS. That stands for the National Federation of State High School Associations. But really, what we stand for, together with the WIAA, are the 178,000 high school sports students in Wisconsin. And so we stand. We stand for the runners, soccer and basketball players. We stand for their coaches, administrators, and officials. We stand for the swimmers, football players, and wrestlers. We stand for the golfers, softball, and volleyball players. We stand as the national leader and advocate for high school athletics and all who participate in them and make them possible. Because it is our purpose to ensure that high school students get to play, perform, and compete together. To learn more about who we are and what we stand for, visit nfhs.org.
Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. BullFallsRadio.com, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. Do you want to start about with the girls or the boys for the next week?
Go with the girls.
Let's go with the girls then. Wisconsin Valley Conference Friday night. I would say the favorites in all games. We're not seeing again. We're still waiting for the big Marshfield-Stevens Point matchup. But Marshfield's at Merrill Friday. East is at Spash. Rapids at Everest. Saturday, makeup. Spash at Wisconsin Rapids. And then next Tuesday, Marshfield at Rapids. West at Merrill. East at Everest. Rhinelander at Spash. So, again, unless somebody pulls off an upset, we're still going to be waiting for those two matchups between Stevens Point and Marshfield. But I like to see if DC Everest can build on that win last night against Rapids. As you said earlier, Rapids is 3-1 in the conference, but they haven't really won anything else. Can DC Everest make a game of it? I think even the Marshfield going to Merrill. Coach DeBoer always, the first time around, Merrill kept it reasonably close. I'm curious to see if they can do a little bit better on Friday.
Yeah, this is like the third time in the show I've been sitting here. I'm like I think it was on one of the interviews. Chad, I was going with that question. That was my next, and that's exactly what I was going to say. I wanted
you stole one with Coach Weinfurter from me, though. I'm going to go there,
But yeah, so paybacks come back, right? So that was what I was thinking, though, was will Everest be able to keep that momentum? I'm kind of curious to see, just being a fan of high school basketball, if Rapids, what are you? I mean, I don't know based on the record, and I haven't seen them play yet. On paper, all the games look like the top team within record-wise and where they stand in the conference should win. I think Coach DeBoer throws wrinkles in his game plans where he puts his girls in a pretty good spot. They played Marshfield solid the first time, and they got them at home this time around. And I think that's the big key in a lot of these games. I mean, we can say on paper that somebody's going to beat somebody, but the second time around, what are you going to do in that chess match? You got to analyze that first game, analyze where your team is at this point, and decide if there's a wrinkle. Do we have to execute our own solid, smaller game set of stuff better? Is there something different we could throw at them that could give us an edge and put them back on their heels? And I think that's kind of the fun part in playing somebody a second time, especially.
I like the West and Merrill game next Tuesday. I'll be doing that game here on WXCO, and I heard Coach DeBoer talk after the first game against West and basically saying, boy, that West team hadn't played like that all season long. That was like the one game the West team really kind of clicked. And I think that's going to be a very competitive game next Tuesday as well.
Yeah, and I think, again, it's jockeying for that position right there. They're hovering around each other at the same spot in the conference. And as any team that's on the lower end, you want to raise yourself up as well. And if you're out ahead of a team, you want to control your position. So I think some of these games will show us that as the weeks prevail here.
I don't see anything that stands out in the GNC in terms of the conference race. Lakeland is at Medford on Friday. No conference games coming up on Tuesday. I think we're going to have to wait. I believe one of the games that was postponed was Lakeland-Mosinee Part 2. I think because we were talking about Mosinee getting that out of the way. Now It's not going to be out of the way, but nothing really stands out. Is anything you want to mention about that?
You're looking on paper. Lakeland beats Medford. It should. Rhinelander should beat Anago.
Yeah.
I guess
Mosinee's off.
Mosiney's off, and then they come back with a couple of ones where they host Medford and Neilsville, and nothing, that stands out there other than, you get to. I think from those teams' perspectives, they go out and want to remain consistent and own their spots, and for a win side, you get to go do it on the road. So I think sometimes when you're supposed to beat the team, and you should, number one, as a coach, you try to get your team to maintain the level you expect them to play at and not play down, so to speak, to what the competition level might be. But I think you can get a little bit more out of that if you go and do it in somebody else's gym. It puts you on a different surface with different rims, different environment. I think that can help that game.
Merriwood South, I think the two most interesting games both involve Auburndale. We have a number of crossover games, but then Auburndale is at Phillips tomorrow night. Two teams at the top of near the top of their conference, and then Assumption in Auburndale on Monday. Probably the most significant games coming up.
Yeah, I mean Auburndale has a nice mark of 8-1, but two teams that are not going to be easy wins. Phillips up there. in their own gym. They're already a dangerous team to begin with, and then they go out to play on their court. And we've seen what Assumption can do in terms of the trapping, the way they press, the different scoring outlets that they have. So I think it's a good test for Auburndale, because I've seen Auburndale. They've had an element of consistency in the wins they've got, but the wins that I've seen, recently, they're not blowout knockouts from different teams in the conference. It's like they're getting by. So that'll be a good test for them to have to pick up their play and try to finish the job against two good teams.
And maybe the girls' game of the week, CWC East, Whitburn and Bondwell. For Whitburn, it's an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you want at this point.
Yeah.
You've had your team and your girls have taken it in their control and done everything that you've expected them to do from the one blemish mark they have on their record. You can't have more of a fun environment than to go knock off the team, share the conference lead, and do it on their own floor at that point to solidify where you want to stand and be. And I think the only bad part is you don't want to share it, right?
Right.
That's the only downside of that. But that's the best option right now.
Yeah, if you don't have any options, you better share it.
Right.
And who knows? I mean, there's still a lot to play for after this game as well.
But I'm thinking they're playing at a heavy rate. They came out and owned. We saw Amherst play Newman, and Amherst was a good basketball team, and they came out and owned them.
Let's turn to the boys. Wisconsin Valley Conference got some significant games coming up. Marshfield and West tomorrow night, right here on Bull Falls Radio. Friday, Stevens Point and East. You got Spash and Rapids, always a big game on makeup on Saturday night. You got East and Everest round 2 coming up at Everest next Tuesday. I guess I'll have to throw it out there. What of these games jumps out at you?
Well, I always, so many times in our non-conference games, we were the smaller school going as a bigger school. So I love to. It's a different level, but I love to see when a team is out ahead of you in the conference, you got the chance to knock them off and bring them back closer to you. So the one where Spash has to go over to East to play over there, I think is a big game for East to gain another ground on some of those top teams and March or Spash, somebody's coming out of there with a loss eventually, if nothing else, when they play each other, if nobody else can give it to them. So I think it's a big deal for East to get a shot at them on Friday to kind of bring them off that 3-0 mark. I think the Marshfield West one is intriguing tomorrow night too, because, like we've talked about, West, it's a little wrench when some players get injured and then lineups have to shift and stuff like that. So I think it's another true testament to see where your team stands, who's stepping up, who's filling in the void till we can get back to our strongest potential. And, Marshfield's just been playing consistent. They're steady. They got a lot of length. They got a lot of scoring punch. Can hit from the outside as well as they take it inside. So I think it'll be a good test for West. And, the Everest East one on Tuesday also, just one more game, and I think is interesting. East looking to – you're going to remember the way you played against that team the last time. So you're going to bring that out, break it down, and go back through it so that you can play better the next time. For Everest, I think it's a little chance to gain ground, and they want to keep climbing up there. For East, it's a chance to perform the way they have throughout the season, with that maybe being a little bit of a hiccup where they didn't play to the level they can play to on a given night.
Great Northern Conference. Among the games, Mosinee takes on Lakeland at home. Mosinee is home against Lakeland coming up Monday of next week. Mosinee has a interesting non-conference game Friday against Edgar coming into Mosinee. I would think, again, they had a Merriwood Conference full earlier in the week. Another Merriwood Conference South full coming up as well. Rhinelander gets a crack at Rapids in a non-conference game Tuesday. Anything jump out in the GNC?
Well, you got to give Mosinee some credit in their non-conference scheduling, between playing a couple of the Merriwood teams, between Marathon, Edgar, and then I don't know their full non-conference schedule, but they jump out and play DC Everest, I believe. So
that's what Coleman said.
So I thought
you heard it somewhere, right?
I heard it somewhere, and I thought I heard it recently. So I give them credit on that. I think just from what I've watched Mosinee now play, and I saw Lakeland play in the Stratford tournament, and I think Mosinee, just the athleticism and the balanced play they have, and the physicality they have with a lot of those players, should be able to go out and keep Lakeland at bay. But to Lakeland's credit, new coach, consistency. They're 4-1 in that conference. And they'll see if they can slide in and sneak one for Mosney. For Rhinelander, they'll beat Anago. They're jumping out into the valley a little bit when they play Rapids on Tuesday. So I guess just some interesting matchups in the crossover there. Medford still, I don't know, a little uncertainty. They're 3-2. They're 5-7 overall. They've got some point production, but it just seems like there's not the consistency that we've seen out of these normal Medford teams, and that can happen over the years due to graduation and teams fluctuate a little bit. But they beat Merrill, who I'm sure gave it everything they got. They can also gain some ground, and we'll see where they finish against Lakeland next Friday.
Merriwood South, always interesting. I guess you can combine it with the Merriwood North because we have another couple of nights of crossover games between Thursday and Friday. And then next Tuesday, again, every time that the South gets together, there's always interesting games. Marathon at Stratford, Edgar at Assumption, Newman at Auburndale. Anything in particular jump out either with the crossovers or those specific Merriwood South games on Tuesday?
Yeah, just jump into the earliest games in the schedule. Athens is going to come at Marathon physically on Thursday. I mean, that's going to be, and it's in their gym. And I've seen teams over the year, they're just gain a little momentum. They can keep their foot in the door, and they come after you pretty good. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm not interested, but I think Marathon will take them. Auburndale, I think, has the toughest, and they got to go into Rib Lake and play their Thursday. That's the toughest matchup for them. For Stratford, they've had a lot. They were one of the teams that started a little late due to the state championship, so they've had a lot of basketball lately in getting games back that they didn't have initially in the beginning of the year because of their schedule of practice. And it'll be interesting to see because Coach Schmidt, when he was on, talked about the consistency of his team starting to get down stuff and some of the mental errors they were still having just because he didn't see their practice reps. And, they've hit a little run here where they've won some of their games. They have Marathon Tuesday night, so they're going to throw everything they can defensively at them. I don't, just judging from what I've watched this season, the offense to beat Marathon isn't probably quite there, but you can't underestimate what position Coach Schmidt will put his team in to win. Edgar, 10-2 mark overall. Yeah. New coaches this year. Again, a team that's starting to play a little consistency. I think they'll get Abbotsford, but they have Abbotsford on Thursday, but they got to turn around and play a tough one back-to-back. They go right over to Mosney on Friday. And then Assumption and Newman Catholic, I think still anything they can gain, whether they can beat a team in the crossover or they steal one from within the conference, I think is a big deal when you're trying to establish experience, play out of your young kids, and get some confidence instilled in them.
And I guess CWC East and CWC North, you got Whitburn hosting the first place Bondwell Bears on Friday night. Back-to-back losses this past week for Whitburn does not get any easier on Friday. And then you got Northern Lutheran in the north taking on Wild Rose tomorrow night on the road. And Port Edwards at home on Monday. Anything?
Is Wild Rose in that conference? With
no, they're not.
Yeah, so sometimes when they jump out and they play somewhat just a little bit a little bit southeast, west of them, gets a little more challenging. Yeah. So I think Northern Lutheran will have a little bit of a tough test against Wild Rose. For Wittenberg, speaking of tough tests, that ain't going to be easy with Bondwell Friday night. That team has jumped out and established themselves in the conference. So, it's tough when you want to look to build off the losses you just had and show your improvements and show that what you're doing in practice and trying to tweak, and you got the toughest competitors. So sometimes you got to break that down into moments of things you've been struggling on that you can find within that game that you did better on to build the kids up to get them to the point where you need to get them when it's maybe not as difficult of an opponent rolling in the gym.
We got 2 minutes to go.
I was going to want to discuss quarters versus halves, but I don't think we have time to do that. That's pretty.
Well, you need more than 2 minutes?
Well, go for it. Okay,
halves. When it first occurred, I didn't like it because it took away a break for our break. But you can't, because I'm assuming the question is 8-minute quarters or 18-minute halves, because that was basically what I heard.
That's what it was, yeah.
Yeah. So, you don't want to lose games. Those 8-minute quarter games, sometimes they were done in just over an hour. That's not enough.
And I asked the question based on earlier before the basketball season started, there was some debate to go back to quarters.
Exactly, and that's and the 8-minute quarters too. If it's 9-minute quarters, then it's a discussion.
Well, and the two things that became hard initially when they transferred from halves or from quarters to halves was you felt like you were going to lose the extra time. It was an extra time out banked in between those breaks, and then most of us got a lot of comfort in how we had learned and established our subbing, not necessarily with the given players year in and year out, but how you kind of like to run your rotation and what your comfort level was. And halves present a different problem. The foul situation on players of keeping them in longer or taking them out sooner was different problems because so much in those games for coaches in their heads can be measured on time limits sometimes, and the maximum amount of moments you want to happen out in that game. I think from the flow standpoint, that's where I'd hate to see it go back. With the halves, there's just better flow to the game, and who doesn't, want a little more time if you can have it. Yeah. That's what this is about. Is those from players to coach. Hey, but you want more game time. That's why players play the game, and that's why they practice.
Yeah, I just think that to go back would be a step back. I mean, I agree that it works. And I find it weird that we see so many different ways of doing it. Sometimes in the college level, you see the women's game be quarters and the men's game be halves.
Well, even for the youth growing up, because the reason why they play young early on is to get them ready for the next level that they want to play. And you go to different tournaments. Some have quarters, some have halves. I've walked up to games where some people, we're playing halves at this school, but we're playing quarters here. And I just don't know what lends it's. It's like consistent.
It's like going someplace and having a shot clock, and other places not having a shot clock.
Right.
I mean, it would be that way, and it makes no sense. But I would say 2-0, keep halves.
Yes, I'm in with you.
All right.
Not that our vote matters, but that's what we want.
Thanks to our guest, Chad Weinfurter, the Auburndale head basketball coach, and Colin Preby from DC Everest. Well, I guess you're not going to be here next week, so we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Sounds good. I'll brush up on my hockey between then and now.
Very good. He's Jeff Grass. I'm Chad Holmes. Thanks for joining us for the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
WXCO 1230 AM, W255DN Wausau, streaming at bullfallsradio.com.